You know, we're very much aware too of the history of the statue. I think at the time, you know, in Fanfares we studied history, and they was talking a lot about Father Matthew, the fact that he was such a prominent Capuchin, the man who built Holy Trinity Church, and he was also involved in the temperance movement, which was praised so much by Jennie O'Connell, who was at the opening of the Capuchin Church in Holy Trinity when it was opened, because of his association with Father Matthew. So it has been a landmark down through the years, figures very prominently in poetry and prose. And I think it is something that I think the citizens of Cork are proud of.
Well, I think it's an essential part of Cork's history, and I think it should be celebrated and it should be reflected upon. And in modern times, whereas absolute temperance is not a popular thing, it will always be part of the equation and part of discussion, and particularly in a world where you know, addiction and difficulties with substance abuse and so on, there's a relevance to what Father Matthew was all about.
As a Cork man, I suppose it's as iconic as the English market is at this stage. It's just part of the character of Cork, and you know, you come onto Patrick Street and you see Father Matthew's statue and you say, you know, home. And to a Cork man it means an awful lot, obviously, and very proud of it.
Matthew was this extraordinary love for someone that lived like Christ on earth. The very same as Pope Francis today is hugely inspired by the very same person that inspired Theobald Matthew and what's inspiring us all now. This extraordinary Saint Francis of Assisi.
It behoves all of us who have a pride in our city and a pride in our culture and our heritage that we take as an example the history of the statue, or the history of Father Matthew, and we bring it back to the people and outline to them the importance of it and the significance it can have today in our lives.
And I love that Cork saying as well, where people will say when he's putting his hand out that he's saying, you know, that's the age I started drinking at, I was that high. And I kind of like that as well. It's that Irish sense of humour, and with myself and my relationship with not drinking, I like to have a bit of fun with it as well. So yeah, I think I've grown to love the statue, and I'd hate to see it being moved anywhere.
I think with Father Matthew you have to, it's just to be treasured, and I suppose the best part for us is, you know, when you think about it, there a couple of years ago when Beth Galley suggested removing it from Patrick Street, and suddenly people who had never thought about it, people who pass by it day in day out, suddenly stopped still and kind of went, oh no, that's not going anywhere.
Sort of creeps into your life and to your broader knowledge. And I suppose the big one I remember as a kid, for example, it was a commonly used phrase here, fellas who will give you up drink for Lent or whatever, they'd say, I'm on attack, I'm on attack now at the moment, or he's on attack. And I just always never really figured out what that was about until later on I realised the TAC was the TAC, the Total Abstinence Crusade, that that went right back to Father Matthew's time.
It's very important to commemorate it, extremely important to commemorate it. because like that, it's an opportunity to get the statue out there again and let people know what's it about and why it's celebrating, why it's actually in Patrick Street for 150 years and has survived and been loved. I mean, not alone has it survived, it's been very much loved by people.
And the statue and the Mengen's clock, so both of them were neck and neck. Who I meet at Mengen's on the statue. And then, of course, the line that I hope I haven't said it already is the Smith from Patrick's Bridges wicket, how does Father Matthew stick it? Here's up malls to devise a fair lip. And look at Father Matthew's statue. What's looking down at him? Shandon. Right, you can see Shandon from Father Matthew, or vice versa.
A child and his mother were walking through town. They were passing the statue as the day was going down. Who is that figure all wrapped up in stone? Son, that's Father Matthew, the temperance man.
And then as I got older, I suppose I remember it as a meeting point that you'd hope you might meet a young lady at or nearby. And then when I went into business, it was as a marker for where my business was. We used to say Micheál Jewelers near the statue.
Father Matthew was just there. He was part of Cork like me. He wasn't a Corkman, but he was part of Cork. And he was always, for everybody that's alive today in Cork, there was never a time that we didn't have Father Matthew. So in that sense, the statue was just, it's always been there, you know.
Domineering figure in Cork, and I think it's absolutely right that we should celebrate people like that because they made meaningful change and were a tremendous force for good.
I think Father Matthew should be commemorated and celebrated for what he did in his time. I believe that his campaign didn't last after his death. Sort of what he stood for and what he campaigned for really faded out within some years of his death, that it didn't survive him, regrettably.
What's he doing even to ask that question? He's somebody with a message, and we're commemorating, and you just look at what the next several years or 10 years are going to be commemorations of war and rebellion and revolution and killing, so much of that, and here is a statue for somebody who was a tremendous force for good. So to commemorate him, I think, is an incredibly valuable thing.